Hey, my name's TC Burr. Welcome to Yet, a podcast created to encourage you to get your goal or idea out of your head and into reality. On this podcast, you'll hear stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas to help you write your book, start your business, launch your podcast, or whatever it is you hope to accomplish. Because it's not that you haven't done it, it's just that you haven't done it yet. My guest today is Becca Campbell. I am super thankful to have you here. This is such an honor and joy to be able to talk to you. So what I typically do with my guests is I actually invite them to do their own intros, their own bios. So I could describe what you do and who you are, but it's always better to me to hear from the actual guest. So I would love, no pressure, 30 seconds or less, if you could describe kind of who you are and what you do.
Lots of things that I have dipped my toes into or just dived full in on. But it all started about 9 years ago. Honestly, before that, but we'll start with a short version of 9 years ago. We had our first daughter and she couldn't sleep. And that was miserable. But I didn't want to not be with her. I wanted to find some way to stay at home with her, but still make my income as a teacher's salary. And so we sought help with getting her to sleep well. And that gave me the motivation and like, oh my gosh, this is amazing when you sleep all night long. Let's help other people do this. So I became a sleep consultant and I've been doing that. My business is Little Z's since 2015. And then through that journey, I realized that I actually love business way more than I love talking about sleep. And so through years and years of talking about sleep, then I was able to start coaching others in business. And that's carried me on all kinds of adventures. So that's a little snapshot where I am today.
So I think anyone who's ever had kids can resonate to some degree or another with the struggle of sleep for the little guys, especially, right? So when you first started out, it sounds like it was birthed out of a kind of a personal like challenge that you all were going with your daughter. How did you make that jump from, okay, I got to solve this problem for me to, okay, this is something that I actually can help? Like, did you go online and read a bunch of advice or talk to family and friends? Like, because when you've got a new baby too, like there's no shortage of advice and like tips you should try from relatives and friends and everyone. So I'm curious, like how you got from, I've got to solve this problem to, no, I can help other people with this thing.
Yeah, that's a great question because there is a lot of advice out there, but in the field of sleep consulting, you need a certification of some sort. So yes, you could read everything, but the reality is you need to know the certain path of what to teach. And so that was the spring of 2015. I became certified and then I went back to my classroom job. It was like a 1 week certification program with ongoing mentoring. So I came back to my classroom. That was April. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go do this full time. I am not going to be a teacher anymore, which is not probably the smartest advice when you are, a young parent and you need the income that you have. That's a steady income to say, I'm just going to try this thing. We're just going to go for it. But I knew that like this was it. And so I came back to my classroom. I finished out the year and my goal was by August, I wanted to be making my teacher's salary. And I met that goal and was like, all right, let's keep going. And so my initial was, okay, I need to get the training to do this. But I had that like spark of, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Guys, did you know that when your kid sleeps, your life is so much better? And I just wanted to spread that all over.
Yeah. Was this kind of like the catalyst that launched you into entrepreneurial work? Or had you kind of always had a little bit of that bent, whether or not you actually were working for yourself? Like, talk through that kind of, was that a transition for you? Or was that something that was always kind of dormant in the background and then this fired it up?
Oh, it's always been there. I mean, when I was a kid, I was that one who was like, writing, oh, I'm going to like go clean houses as a business. And I would like write up like what my prices would be and what I would do. And then I would think about like, I would do lemonade stands with my neighbor. And then as soon as I was old enough to go get a job, I had so many part-time jobs, not because I couldn't keep them, but I just wanted to try everything. So I did everything from working at Moe's to being a lifeguard, a camp counselor, to working at a law firm, to being at a retail, like everything that you could possibly do. I just wanted to try it all. And I figured out like, I like this. I don't like that. I like this. I don't like that. And then I tried to become a personal stylist in 2012, 2013. That didn't go anywhere, thankfully. So I became a consultant instead. But I had wanted to do something on my own. I just didn't know what it was. And so when I became a sleep consultant, what I didn't realize was that in order to sell something or have a business, you got to solve a pain point. And thankfully, a lot of parents are really tired. So that's a really nice pain point to solve. But I've always loved trying things and doing things. And you'll never not see me trying. I will try anything. That's for sure.
So talk about, so you mentioned that the little Z's, like, so you had the issue that you were trying to solve for your family. You got your certification as a sleep consultant. You started Little Z's. And then eventually that kind of blossomed into or led to some other ventures as well. So talk about kind of maybe some of the other things that you have done and are doing now that have maybe started off from Little Z's and have led to where you are now.
Yeah. So I started Little Z's and then very quickly learned that I remember actually I Googled what is marketing because I did not know what that was. People were talking about it. I was like, what is marketing? And I remember like reading about it, and I didn't realize at the time that is one of my giftings that I just didn't even realize that I had. And so as I grew Little Z's, other sleep consultants would ask me questions about things. Well, how are you doing that? And how are you doing this? And so in 2020, we launched what's called the Sleep Sorority, which is a business coaching membership for sleep consultants all over the world. And that's the cool thing, is that there are women who are just like me, who are sleep consultants that are all over the globe. And we have the exact same passion and desire to help families. As we say at Little Z's, we make sleep a thing. And that's what they all have that desire to do too. And so I opened this membership in 2020, and we've been doing that for the last almost 4 years. And I love being able to teach other sleep consultants, hey, this is what I've done. This is what I've tried. This is what I've failed at. So maybe don't do it that way. Try it this way instead. And I just taught for the first 3 years. I taught like, this is what I've done. Here's some ways you can try this. And it's been a lot of fun to do that. We've recently switched it to learning from each other because I don't have all the answers. There's so many other women who do this differently. So we're learning from each other now. But from even that, kind of created this other need, which was people wanted to create courses, online courses like we have. And we happen, my husband, Chad, and I are business partners. We happen to own all the equipment to make courses. And so people started hiring us to produce their online courses. And that was so much fun. We did that for about 2 years. We worked with 12 different clients. But the biggest problem with that was the content could have been so much better. And what our giftings are is really in teaching. And so we realized that, you know what, while that business was called the course company, while there was a need for that, people definitely wanted us to film their content. The greater need was actually helping them create better content. So but all of this could not have happened if I hadn't started with Little Z's and we hadn't started to learn, like, how do you teach online? How do you talk to tired people? And those two things have served us so well. Like, I am a master at how to market to tired people, and we are both really good at teaching. And that has created so many opportunities for us that we would have never known were inside of us if we hadn't started this entrepreneurial journey. Yeah,
that's so cool. So you've been doing, I think you said you started Little Z's in 2015. Is that right?
Yeah.
So since then, I imagine there have been some lessons learned, growing pains, things that you've kind of learned along the way. So I'm curious if you could share either from a specific to like sleep consulting or just business in general, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to go through or lessons you've had to learn as you're building your different businesses?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that if it's going to go back to what I said a second ago, like, you'll never not see me try something. Because one of the hardest and like most frustrating things that I see other business owners do is have ideas for things, but never implement them. And the biggest lesson I've learned is that nobody else in the world is going to think about the idea like I'm going to think about the idea. And so there's two ways that goes. One is that, like, wow, I'm thinking of this thing in a way that no one else is thinking of. Also, when I'm publicly launching this product or idea, no one else in the world is like, wow, that was a really dumb idea. I can't believe she thought about that. Like, we tell ourselves these lies that, like, oh, if I put this out there, there's going to be people who are criticizing me. But that's not true. We think that in our own selves. And so I had to put that aside a long time ago. Honestly, because of the need that like our family needed money. And so I couldn't be worried about what people were thinking of. I had to make money for us, right? And so that probably needing to hustle, needing to implement ideas, needing to make money actually helped us not care about what the world might think of our concept or ideas. It just like, nope, we're just going to plow through and do it because this is what we're going to try. This is what we're going to do. And some of those attempts were amazing and brought great income to our family. And some of them completely flopped. But I'm okay with that because I've tried a lot of things. So that to me has been the biggest lesson. And the reality, I do see that there are some business owners who they don't necessarily need the income, right? It's like a side hustle. It's not something that's like, oh, I really need to bring this money in for my family. And if that's the case, if it's not needed, it's probably not going to go anywhere because there has to be a need that you're trying to goal to meet. And so whether that's like, okay, we're going to, make this goal of an additional like a rental property or a vacation or.
Yeah. So when you were describing your kind of like your early life as like, the lemonade stand and like cleaning houses and like, it sounds like you kind of had like your business plan kind of drawn out and you kind of knew what you were doing. And I imagine when you as an adult, as a business owner now, there's some level of plan and structure and we know where we're going. And there's some level of we are learning and figuring it out as we go. Can you talk about for you and Chad and for the things that you've done, like talk about that balance and how you find it? Because I think a lot of people who are going to listen to this are maybe earlier on in the process. And one of the reasons why they're not starting is because they feel like I don't have A to Z figured out yet. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you think about that?
I've never had A to Z figured out. Never, ever, ever. I always build things while they're flying. That is 100% what we do. And I'm glad because I think that we would have never done anything. When I started Little Z's, I had my 1 week of training and like fresh off the boat, like don't really kind of trying to like figure out things. I walked into my church that weekend and started telling people, oh, I see you have a 4-month-old. I can actually help you and get them to sleep through the night. Like, what? I literally just learned this like 3 days ago, but it didn't matter. I just was like, well, we're going to do this. And here I am. And so, and that's where my first client came from, was a church conversation. And so you're never, ever, ever going to have it all figured out. But if you are somebody who feels like, no, I need to have a plan, you don't need A to Z, maybe figure out A to D. There you go. That's all you need. You don't need to know the entire journey. And even as we're building our new business, Teach While Online, I have no clue like what I'm doing day to day. In my head, I'm kind of like, okay, I think I want to share this. And I think I want to do that. And I know what our funnel will look like, but that funnel is going to change and it's going to evolve. And so I've learned that the way that I work best is when I have an idea, I just have to like lean into it and go with it. Because if I don't, then it's never going to happen. And also, that's my best work. When I have an idea yesterday and I implement it the next day, that's my best work. I am not somebody who can sit on an idea and develop it for a year. And so I've never had a business plan, never. I have a cousin who, if she ever hears this episode, she'll laugh. We had a meeting with her. She is like, has all of these degrees in economics and business and all these things. And she met with Chad and I on how to write a business plan. And I was like, I'm sorry, I just can't do this. Like, I don't know. I don't know the answers to these questions. Yeah. So we don't know. And that's my plan. But it's not something that I'm not living in chaos when I say that. I know the end goals of things, and the end goal is always to make money. And so I know the end goals of these things. And that's really kind of what's driving forward. But the joy for me in owning a business is riding the roller coaster of what the plan is going to be. That to me is so much fun. And that may not be the definition of fun for some people. And that's okay.
Hey listeners, are you having trouble with your goals? For the longest time, I had this feeling, this idea that I was supposed to do something different than what I was doing, something big. But I had no idea how to even think about that, what that was, or how I should get started. I've created this 5-step process to help myself crystallize and supercharge my goals, and I want to share it with you. I'll give it to you absolutely free. All you have to do is go to my Instagram page at Yet Podcast, click the link in my bio, and sign up for my email list, and I will send this to you absolutely free. This has been such a game changer for me when it comes to my goals. I've made so much progress in so many areas of life, and I think it'll help you too. So again, go to Yet Podcast on Instagram, click the link, and sign up for my email list to get 5 steps to supercharge your goals. Thanks. Back to the show.
Well, I love that. So as you're talking about the way that even like thinking about the path that you've taken with your businesses, you started Little Z's, which led into the sleep sorority, which led to the course company, which kind of you now gravitated to Teach Well Online. And you're learning about yourself and your strengths and what you like along the way. I have this picture in my mind of like you and Chad walking, at night on a trail in the woods with a flashlight, and you can see enough to see 10 feet in front of you. But then as you get a little closer, you see, oh, here's a turn we might take. Let's go down this way and see where this leads. So I love that. And again, I do think that a big part of the reason why so many people don't start is because they're afraid. What if I fail? Or what if I don't have it all figured out? The thing that I'm trying to underscore with this podcast is none of us have it all figured out. So many of us are, as you say, we're building the airplane in the sky. We're figuring it out as we go. But that doesn't mean chaos. You still have a destination. You still have a process. But it's okay to not have every single detail ironed out at the beginning because no one does. So I love that.
If you are waiting to find that path and be like, I just can't see the full picture right now, it's going to be lost. It's never going to happen because I've seen so many business owners, so many sleep consultants that I've coached. They're just waiting in the corner with their flashlight. Well, I can't see the whole thing, so I'm just not going to go. Then it's never going to happen. And that's so sad because there's something inside of you that wants to go, but then you're just not even going to give yourself the opportunity to step out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So, okay. So a couple questions come to mind. So one, talk a little bit about, and I don't know how much involvement you've had from this perspective, but I'm curious if you have along the way, have you had coaches or mentors or people who have kind of poured into you on your journey to help you, like you said early on, you were Googling what is marketing? So Google is awesome. But did you also have other people who were kind of, a step or two ahead of you that were able to share wisdom and insight and coaching, either, folks that you hired or just people who are kind of organically in your network? I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
I would say that I tried for a very long time and then I gave up hope and I put my head down and didn't listen to anybody. And then I finally came up for air and was like, actually, I could use some help here. So in the beginning, I hired a sales coach, which was a terrible idea because it was a very corporate-y type of firm, which was not at all the fit for a mom who had 2 under 2 and was trying to figure things out. That was not the right fit. But I didn't know that. I was very naive at the time. And then I did hire a business life coach at one time, but again, was not the right fit and figured that out very quickly and then dropped that. And then I felt like I had spent all this money. Maybe this just isn't for me. And so for probably about 4 years, I listened to podcasts, I'd read books and stuff like that, but I never actually paid anybody anything. And it was last year, I actually joined a mastermind, and that was huge for me because I had been wanting to be in a group of people who were at my level for a long time. But sleep consulting is a very weird field. We are not creative people, but we're not medical people. And so I never really knew where to fit in. And so, but I had watched the creative world for a long time and what they had done, and artists and photographers and wedding planners and all these things. And so I'd taken some of their concepts and applied it to my thing. And so finally I had this opportunity to be in a mastermind with people who were creative business owners. And that gave me this oh, I belong here. Okay, I'm definitely on your level, finally. And then this year, as I've been in this mastermind, it's actually given me so much motivation that oh, I have a lot to offer this group. It's not just that I'm on your level and I can hang. I actually can teach you and lead you too. And so that has been huge for me. And so there's definitely been some groups along the way. And then there's for sure been individuals who have, maybe I haven't paid them, but it's just been conversations over coffee or podcast interviews and things like that. I've been oh, that was really, really helpful. So surrounding yourself with people who can speak into you, truth, and who can call out the lies that you're telling yourself, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So over the course of your career as an entrepreneur, business owner, what I've already talked about some of the lessons. So if somebody came to you, because I think a lot of people would hear this interview and say, wow, she's been through some stuff. Like, I bet she's got tons of wisdom, and I'm not going to send everybody knocking down your door. But if someone came to you and said, hey, I would love to get some advice. I'm thinking of starting something. Maybe it's sleep consulting. Maybe it's teaching, maybe it's a online course of some other type or something totally different, but it's a new thing and they're just starting out. And they said, Becca, what's your best advice? Like, if you got 30 minutes with somebody and you want to give them like the most helpful, whether it's like a tool or a hack or just, an encouragement, what do you tell somebody who's just getting started?
If you're just getting started, and the goal is you want to make money with this. And I'm assuming that that's what we're talking to someone who wants to start a business, right? Because that's my sweet spot.
Sure.
If that's what you're going for, one, be yourself. That is because that's who people are going to be attracted to. Do not ever think about a logo or colors before you think about who am I? But we love to think about the branding part because that's fun. Yeah. But people aren't going to come to you because of your logo or because of your colors. They're going to come because they're attracted to you as a person. And so be you 100% and put yourself out there. If you're building something, you've got to show up every day. It is not something where you can just like take a back seat for a couple days and then pop up. You need to be present. And I'm talking about social media or your content, weekly content, like your weekly podcast. Being consistent is huge. And honestly, that's a lot to soak in just like, oh my gosh, I want to start this thing and now I have to be present all the time. But the reality is, yes, you need to be present. You need to be yourself and you have to put yourself out there. Because if you don't, there's a lot of noise in the world. And so you're just going to get covered up with the other noises. But then I think the final piece I would say is that like after doing 3 businesses and not celebrating all the small things, like you need to be really excited about, oh my gosh, I got 100 followers on social media. That's huge. I actually used to hide behind those things and be like, oh, it's not good enough. Like, we're not big enough yet. But that's so false. And you're going to miss a lot of opportunities. So as you're showing up and you're talking to your people, it doesn't matter if it's just 20 people or 40 people. I've heard that analogy where it's like, imagine if you see your story views and you've talked to, 40 people saw your Instagram story. That's pretty cool if you had 40 people in a room and you were talking to them, right? Like, that's pretty cool. Don't look at these things as so minimal. You're starting and everything has to start somewhere. So lean into that and maybe look at it as an opportunity for what could you try? What could you just throw out there and see what sticks? Like, you're never going to get this beginning phase back again. So you might as well just enjoy it.
That's great. So, okay, couple last questions before I let you go. So are there any books, podcasts, resources, social media accounts that have helped encourage you or teach you good lessons along the way? So think about, again, somebody who maybe is at the early stages of their thing. Like, what are some of your best recommendations for content or things to consume that can help?
Yeah, I love Donald Miller, Building a Story Brand. So you want to lean into the fact that he teaches that you are not the hero. Your hero is the person that you're leading. And so you as the guide, not the hero, that will change so much of your marketing message, which is great. So I love his book. One of my favorite books is The Go-Giver by Bob. Oh gosh, I forgot. Bob something. But The Go-Giver. The Go-Giver is so good in just, it's a really short book. It's like a parable of business. And the phrase that he says in there is that and I found it to be so true, is that when you have more reach and more impact, your income will grow. And so what does that look like to just serve people a weekly piece of content? What does it look like to serve people on social media? So serving people has been a huge pillar of our business, and knowing that reciprocity will come back with that. So The Go-Giver, Building a Story Brand are really, really good. Those are probably 2 of my go-tos. I'm reading right now Seth Godin's The Dip on knowing like when do you need to like quit something because it's not serving your time. But he also has a book called Tribes, and then Pat Flynn has a book called Superfans. And all of those are so good to recognize that you're not just building a business for yourself, you're building a business or a platform for the people who will also agree with you. And going back to Donald Miller, it's not about you, it's about the people that you're trying to bring in. And so that mindset will be huge when you start anything.
That's great. That's so good. Thanks, Becca. Well, this has been so much fun. Last question before I let you go. Where can people find out? So if I'm a mom or a dad with a baby who can't sleep, or if I'm somebody who just wants to follow along with your online podcast, Teach Well, the stuff that you're doing there, share all the links, social media, website. What do you got?
Yeah. If you are a tired parent and you want to make sleep a thing, head to littlezsleep.com. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to teach well online, follow us on Instagram at Teach Well Online. Pretty simple.
Excellent. Well, Becca, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I hope you have an awesome day.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you to the so many people who have listened and rated and reviewed the shows. I really appreciate all the encouragement you've sent my way, and please keep it coming. If you have questions or guests you think I should bring on, I would love to connect. You can send me an email at yetpodcast@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram. It's yetpodcast. And please rate and review the show on Apple and Spotify. It means so much, and it helps other people connect with these great stories, encouragements, tips, and ideas. I want to read to you a review that I got recently from Brittany R. She says, "Just press play. This is a good one. Awesome podcast with very good practical tips and encouragement to get going with your goals and ideas." Thank you so much, Brittany, and thanks to you for listening to this week's episode. Until next time, keep working on your goals, and I'll see you soon.